Welcome back to the channel. Today we are deep diving into The Sinners, one of the most daring and the genre-bending films of the year. Directed by Ryan Coogler and set in the 1930s era in the Mississippi, this is actually a Southern Gothic vampire musical, a movie that generally blends the supernatural element, like the supernatural horror, with the cultural commentary and just throws in blue music for a very soulful punch. So we see the movie opens with a very dusty road at twilight, and actually we see here two brothers, that is Elias Stack and Elias Smoke Moore. They return to their Mississippi hometown, and after uh, years running a bootleg liquor shop in Chicago, they just ride in a very rusted truck and exchanging very sparse dialogue between them, and that just hints at the tension that is escalating among them. The landscape we see here, that is very rich in atmosphere and sets the tone. And this will be a story of ghost that is both personal and historical at the same time. We see now the brothers meet Hogwood, and Hogwood actually is very sinister local landowner among them, and to buy a rundown sawmill. So Smoke wants out of the crime world, and he just steps out of this thing, and he just decides to do so. And Stax wants to build something permanent, a juke joint that just celebrates black music, and Hogwood, just despite his racism, agrees to sell, and sensing he can still exploit and just get his work done in other ways. The old sawmill just creaks with the history, and it's bone dry and brittle. Now we see the smoke patches the wall while Stack just clears the floor for a stage. We see the local faces just trickle in because each with scars and stories have the stories to tell one another, and Pearline just belts a verse just to test the acoustics, and the rafters just vibrate with soul. We see Sammy, that is just quiet but burning with talent, watches them all with just a suspicion, with just a awe, and cradling his guitar like a separate weapon. Annie, with Smoke's strange wife, shows up with food and a very cold shoulder, and Delta Slim plays a slow piano line. And Grace is a midwife, volunteers to work the door with them. Now the Juke is a reborn, not just as a business but as a kind of sanctuary. We see that. We see the Sammy's father, a very devout preacher, confronts him about the devil music. He wants that the blues summons spirit and better left buried, but Sammy's on the other side still resists and stating that music is all he knows about, and that is what his goal in his life is, to learn music and to preach music. That is what his aim is. The preacher just strikes a Bible against the table, and they just storms out. Later we see that Sammy just carves strange symbol into his guitar, not knowing where they came from, and music, it seems, is a door. We see at night a very pale man that is named Remick just steps off a train, and he's actually Irish immigrant, very charming and very unsettling. His band, that is pale and eccentric musician, just follows very silently, and they enter the story like a very traveling circus and don't know what the motive is, and but something is just wrong about them. You feel as an audience even that they never eat, they avoid sunlight, and the ticket master who watches them leaves the station is just found dead the next morning. So this is a kind of alarming for them. Fog clings to their footsteps, and we see the remix cane is just scarred with fangs, and we see a child just points at them and cries, and this indicates that actually that something is just wrong with these people, or something negative about their aura is just happened. It's just going to be happen, because as they are stepping into the scene, we see everything wrong is just happening around them, and the band just leaves no footprints around them. The train conductor just loses his time because his watch just spins kind of backward, and flower wilt as they pass, and the reflection never appears in shop windows as we see around them. And Remick just hums a very lulably and very deliberately, and that just sends the chills to the bone actually, because we don't get that what the heck is just happening around them, or what kind of aura or negative energy they are bringing with them. The juke just joints open with a very kind of thunderous energy we see around them, and Sammy plays guitar that makes the crowd fall silent, and Pearline just sings like she just channeling centuries of sorrow, joy at the same time. But when Sammy hits a strange chord, lights just flicker and spirit appears faintly in the corners. We see them, and Remy watches them from the shadows, intrigued outside. And while we see the wild dog just howl around them, inside the air just grows kind of very heavy, kind of very deaf, and bottle shakes on shelves. And one woman just faint during that solo, and the crowd just claps nervously as we waking from a dream. And Sammy sees someone in the back who just vanishes out of nowhere. That is just strange. I mean, we see then Stack just says something that is just not ordinary, keeping with the tension and the environment around them. And but he just keeps watching Sammy. Smoke notices Mary watching from outside, and we see that Pearline just whispers a uh, very unintentional, very kind of awkward hymn to just steady herself. Now we see that Stack's ex, that is Mary, who passes as white in towns, just shows her, and her appearance just creates friction. She warns Stack that dangerous men are watching, and he doesn't listen. Later, she secretly meets Remick and is turned into a vampire, and her face, once warm, just becomes porcelain. We see that she weeps as her reflection disappears there, and a locket burns her chest. Her bite just marks glow in moonlight. We see that she returns to the town with the eyes that no longer just blinks. And Pearline senses her presence before even she enters into that particular room or in that particular scene we see at this right now. And Smoke recognizes her scent but says nothing. And we see that Mary leaves flowers at Annie's door, and the local river just tries 2 inches overnight, so kind of indicating a very fatal end. We see that Remick just offers to perform at the juke joint, and he's just offering them to kind of do the performance both together, both team just mixing up. He says that he can make them famous, immortal, and but Stack is just tempted by all these things. We see that Smoke is just cautious about all these things happening around him, and that night we see the character Mary just bites Stack, and he just transforms into something else that is not fully monstrous, but it seems that he's just lost in time or lost in something, and that we cannot even configure as an audience. Remek just begins his plan and turning artist into a very undead forever performers, and we see that Pearline begins to suspect the truth that the music has changed, and this is nothing, or this was not sort of thing they were expecting at that time. And the wall just bleeds, and Smoke has visions of fire and blood. We see that Annie finds a necklace of teeth in Stack's drawer, and Sammy hears whispers in his chords, and Stack's heartbeat just slows down as the time passes. And Pearline cough just bloods after rehearsal, and a mirror crack by itself. Familiar tune now plays in reverse. And as we see the crowd leaves the joint, the Remix new vampires attack. Chaos just erupts between them, and Cornbread, that is the bouncer, is killed at this instant. And Smokefit barely escape with Annie and Sammy. The survivor regroups in the church where Annie reveals her knowledge of vampire lore passed down from African and Caribbean tradition. Pearline lights candles and sings to calm the spirit. The town whispers the devil walks among them. Children won't leave their home after dusk, and the preacher is found in his pulpit that is drained, and blood flows from the church door. And now Grace just dreams of fire and wakes screaming. Now we see that Smoke digs up the father's shotgun, and Mary just walks barefoot through broken places as we see, and she's just aiming at something that is just unreal and surreal at the same time. A bat colony just swarms the juke roof. We see at the inside the bolted up juke joint, the survivors, that is Smoke, Sammy, Pearl and Grace and Annie, just fortify the place around them. We see that Annie explains the vampire rules, that they just can't enter without a kind of invitation, and they are weak to silver and wood, and they just get burnt down in sunlight. So actually from here we get the thing that they just we are trying to avoid sunlight at the mid of the movie, where we were just introduced to them, and she hands out the makeshift stakes, silver knives and garlic soaked clothes, where we see that Smoke is broken. He's lost his brother to vampirism and knows the clan will arrive at dawn, and tipped off by the Hogwarts, Remix offers them protection, and if they even surrender Sammy, the boy's music, he claims, and can wake old god. Just Smoke refuses all these baseless claims, and Sammy just quietly sharpens his guitar strings into weapons, and Pearline hums a very lullaby to just steady her down, and Bo just draws siglings in this chalk across the threshold. A storm just brews overhead, and Annie paints a word on Sammy's forehead, and Mary watches from the barn rafters a horse scream into the distance. We see at the midnight hits, Grace's daughter is just snatched by Bo, that is now a vampire actually, and to save her child, Grace invites Remick inside. The moment we see, there are just few words that are just unleashed and held, and vampire storms in, and one by one people fall. Grace just sacrifices herself to get her daughter out. We see Delta Slim realizing his blood is a poison due to illness, and so they let a vampire feed and killing it in this process actually. And Annie throws herself between the Sammy and Mary, who hesitates before biting them. We see that Annie dies in this process and she just whispering the Smoke's real name, that is Elijah, as she does. But Smoke screams in very grief and rage. We see Pearline just sets fire into the curtains to slow the vampires. And now we see that Bo is just takes by his own mother, because we see that blood just coats in the piano keys and the roof caves in. We see the character of Smoke just uses silver chains as whips, and Sammy plays a very chord that just drives one vampire mad. And now Mary bites her own arm to resist this instinct, so kind of just referring the situation is really really tense among them. And we see now Stex versus Smoke in a very dark hallway, and the Moore brothers faces each other. Now Stex, that is just fully vampiric, still clings to fragments of memory, and Smoke just begs him to fight it, but the hunger is too strong. They fight in a very brutal silence, fist, stakes, and shattered glasses. That are very unconventional type of methods to fight, and Smoke just gets the upper hand, but he doesn't just kill Stacks. Instead, he leaves him with a memory of Annie and a silver lock. Stack just crumbles, neither dead nor redeemed. He walks into the woods alone and a ghost in the flesh. Smoke just limps away and bloodied and hollow, and the Juke just joins Burn behind them, and Mary watches from the shadow, crying blood, and a wolf just howls very far away. The sunrise paints Stack's silhouette just gold, and the locket just melts in his hand, and a tree splits from lighting as he vanishes. We see that Sammy's tent Pearline has been bitten, and we see that there's just slowing down process. Sammy is alone on the stage, facing Remick. The vampire tempts him with immortality, frame the ability to play forever, but Sammy rejects it. He smashes his guitar on Remick's head, buying time, and Smoke just arrives now bloody, limping, and very deadly, and drives a stick through a Remick's heart. We see the vampire scream, shatters glass, and wakes the dawn. Pearline dies holding Sammy's hand, and outside Hogwarts arms the clan, and Smoke just stumbles into their line of fire and kills them in all wearing final blessings. And very interesting and kind of very baffling battle between both of them and the people around them. He watches the sunrise and as dies at peace, and Remick's ashes just falls into the wind as we see, and Sammy kneels in silence. The sky just turns gold and single chord echoes. And we see the character of Pearline just scarves float in the wind, and the piano plays one note by itself, and record spins without a needle. And we see that now the scene takes in 1992 Chicago, that is 60 years later, and Sammy just performs at a very small blues club. We see his hands are slower, his movements are different, he kind of seems a different person altogether if we compare to the previous past, but his spirit is just fierce as it was earlier. After the set, two familiar figures walk in, that is Stack and Mary. They are unchanged, undead, and unhinged. They just sit quietly, and Stack speaks first. He says Smoke spared him, but only on one condition, that Sammy lives free and make music and never be touched. He honors that vows to his day, and Mary asks him if Sammy regrets not joining them, living forever, and Sammy answers no, actually he lived, but he loved and he suffered at the same time, and it was all real. They ask him to play one more song at the end, and he actually plays a very slow, haunting melody that was no one was expecting him to do such. And when the last note fades, it's like a prayer. Stack smiles. That night, he says, was the last time I saw my brother, and last time I saw the sun, first time I ever felt free. The bar is silent, and Sammy closes his eyes. Outside, the dawn breaks again. The stage light flickers once and then dies, and a photo of Pearline hangs on the wall, and the bartender wipes a tear away. So actually this movie is just more than a vampire movie. Actually, we cannot technically even say that. It's just a kind of single vampire movie. It's a meditation on culture, survival, and altogether the instinct of people and the haunting cost of legacy. Music here isn't just a kind of entertainment as we see in some movies, but it's a kind of power. It summons the dead, repels evil, and connects generations. So actually really like the movie. The plot of the movie was interesting, and that I've seen in recent time, and I think this movie will stick with me for a very long time. And all the characters that they were just acting brilliant. The dialogues were very sparse and they were very accurate, and they're showcasing the condition of each and every character. And overall the tone of the movie, the early settings we see in the Mississippi, and altogether the sets, background, movie, they were actually really good. And even the background music at some point of time and the dialogue just matches. So actually it was a really nice movie. So if you like such kind of backgrounds, do like, share and subscribe Cinema Shadows for more. Thank you for watching.